The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. Let's talk about it. 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 On the Vera Thomas Show. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited again today with my guest, Sean Albertson. We've got a lot to talk about, and what I want you to do is please share and comment today. And just let people know what we're doing here. So please comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. And let me pull my guest up here. Hello, Sean. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Vera. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to spending some time with you and talking customer experience about my book and just, having some fun. That was
Well,
a great intro, by the way. That was an incredible intro. So awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is let our audience know a little bit about Sean Albertson. He is the founder and chief experience officer for CX4 Rocks LLC. He has been a customer experience leader for over 20 years, helping leading companies like Charles Schwab, T-Mobile, and others in telco and financial services create great experiences for their customers. As a professional speaker, coach, and consultant, he specializes in the intersection of survey programs, operational metrics, text, and journey analytics with the use of artificial intelligence. And we're going to be talking about that to bring out the power of those programs. So, Sean, I know this is a mouthful, and for some people that are not techie, they're like, what is she talking about? So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you the floor, and I'd like for you to just share your journey, just tell us more about Sean, your purpose, your passion, and how did you get to that?
Absolutely. So I'll just start a little bit of background about myself. I actually grew up in Texas. I grew up in South Texas. I went to college and graduated from Baylor University. And as soon as I graduated, I hightailed it away from Texas and out of the humidity and away from the bugs that carry away small children. I moved to Colorado. And it was fate because literally the day after I got to Colorado, I met the woman that would be my wife. We have 3 boys. They're all now either in college or out of the house in their career. So we're brand new empty nesters, and it's such a blessing to be at that point. But I've loved Colorado, been here since the early 90s. My passion, I started in customer service. I literally, my first job in the 90s was on the phones, answering phones and talking to customers. And I moved up and changed roles and then moved at different parts of the leadership organization, running teams within operations or training or quality. And I started to really get this feeling that I wanted to do more than just customer service. And it's about the time that actually customer experience became more of a common name, where you look at the surveys and the information and you study the experience your customers have to improve. And I ended up carrying that with me now for 20 years, leading across the organizations. I've spent time in marketing and in, digital teams, doing website design and user experience and things of that nature. And ultimately just really looking across an organization and how they work with their customers to really understand where the opportunities are, how to improve, because we're all customers, right? And how many of us, don't necessarily always like to be the customer, because you're bouncing around and you're trying to chat with someone, or you're calling and you're getting transferred between departments. And unfortunately, customer service, customer experience, a lot of companies struggle with that. And I know we as consumers struggle with that sometimes too. We all have those horror stories, right? The ones we like to tell on the weekend and be like, oh, give me sympathy because this is what this company did to me. So a lot of opportunity.
Yes, and stand on hold forever, and then when you finally get connected, it's not a real person.
Right? Yes, exactly. Yeah, the
That-
representative, please.
Exactly. I do that all the time. Live agent. And so let's talk about that. And how do we get companies to recognize that it's more about that engagement, that personal engagement, rather than the automation? So I want you to just kind of share your process. And I know you also have a story about the 4 rocks, which is the title of your book. And when we get to that part, then I'll pull the book up. But in the meantime, let's talk about customer service. And when we talk about customer service, it's not just the external customer service, but it's also that internal customer service, and how employers are treating their employees, which are also their most valuable asset, and dealing with customer service from an internal perspective. So I want you to kind of talk about all of that.
Now that's a lot. Talk about a mouthful. Customer service, customer experience, customer loyalty, customer journeys. Those are all terms that kind of in my business get bounced around. And it's really about, trying to do what's right ultimately, whether it's for your employee, like employee experience, for your customer, like customer experience, from a marketing standpoint, like brand experience. They're all parts of this thing that, really, creates a connection with a company, for a consumer with a company. Some companies do great. They have a brand that you can hang your hat on and that they're wonderful. And others, that they're not. and maybe even entire industries that you just don't really want to work with. The key for a lot of us, and most of us, work at some point, in business, or have a role in business. And, one of the things in my keynotes and what I like to talk a lot about is it's everyone's responsibility to create great experiences for customers, not just the call center or the team that designs the website. If you work at a company, you are either making the experience better or worse in one way or another, because it takes everyone in an organization to really engage and make that experience right. And so we all have the opportunity to think about our roles in our own organizations, our roles in business, and really understand what are we doing in that context to make things better or worse. And that's a big opportunity that many people just don't think about. But I use the example, if I'm hiring people, I should be hiring people with the right customer experience mindset. If I'm finance and I'm accounting and I do the numbers, well, actually, you should be able to show the business, if you create better experiences, here's the real value to the bottom line. And then there's data people, right, that are always behind the scenes. And they are so important because we need all of that data to create great experiences and be able to provide personalized experiences. And what I found in my career, and this is where I'll segue into kind of the rocks conversation, but, as my role matured and as I started doing more in customer experience and customer journeys, there's one event that just changed, my life. And it was back in 2008. I just mentioned I have 3 boys. They're grown and out of the house now, but back in 2008, they were young. We needed to do a lot of staycations because we couldn't travel and spend a lot of money. Luckily, Colorado has so many things to offer. Well, we love going to this Rocky Mountain National Park, and listeners, maybe you've been there before. Just a beautiful place. And, specifically in there's a place called Moraine Park, and it's got a river rolling through it, kind of like the picture on the cover. It's just one of those rivers that's back and forth and back and forth. And we're there in 2008. My kids are running around like well, like boys, like crazy boys, and they're throwing rocks and they're jumping off rocks. They're splashing each other with water. They're just, they're having a good time. And in the middle of all that chaos, my youngest son stops and he looks at me and he says, Dad, why does this river not flow straight? Why does it wander around and, back and forth so much? Now, at that time, I did the normal dad thing. I made something up on the spot. I sounded very confident about it, and we were going to move on. Of course, he didn't have a smartphone yet either, so he couldn't catch me on anything.
Right.
Well, at the same time, my older son was over by the river. I think he was trying to skip stones, but he was just really making big splashes. And he said, I know that one. I learned about that in school. And so he proceeded to say, it's like, the river flows and then it hits a rock and it can't go through the rock. So it goes around the rock. And then there's erosion that causes it to, even get windier. And yeah, it's the rocks in the river that cause it to wind around. That just lit a fire in my mind. I think, I must have had a funny look on my face because my wife actually is like, you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm just thinking about work. And she's like, really, work now here? But no, but it really hit me because understanding it said, we as customers, think about it. We want that nice, straight, smooth journey with a customer, like on an inner tube in a very slow moving straight river. And maybe we've got a cold beverage next to us or whatever. But we're not like that. We're winding around and bouncing off of rocks. And God forbid we hit rapids. And then we're really in trouble because we have a lot of problems. And it just made this connection for me. The customer journey is like those rivers. And it's our business rocks that get in the way. And so I've developed a program over the last 15 years that really help companies identify, analyze, and prioritize what are the most important things, rocks, that you need to remove from your business on behalf of your customers. Because as we all know, most of the companies we work with have a lot of different problems. And so sometimes companies don't necessarily struggle with not knowing they have problems. It's more they have too many. They don't know how to prioritize. And so that's where this book comes from. And my workshops and my consulting and coaching is really all around that and helping organizations, rally around this opportunity and make things easier for the customer. And
that's amazing that out of the mouth of babes.
Absolutely. I actually asked him, once he made that revelation, I was like, so how do you do it? And he didn't know. So.
Wow. But at least they made a light bulb come up on you, which created the book and also helped you to formalize a concept and a plan that you now use in speaking, in consulting, and in coaching, all from that one trip.
Yep, absolutely.
And the rocks. So yes, very significant, very significant. Well, let's talk about these winding experiences that customers experience. And I want you to talk about it not only from the external customer perspective, because you mentioned all of the different entities within a company, and even with that and the relationships, because customer service, let's face it, it's about relationships. And so the kinds of relationships that you're even having internally impacts on that external experience that your customers will have. And so I do want you to kind of look at both sides of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Well, and employee experience and the culture that you build in an organization. And I talk about reducing effort for the customer, but it's also reducing effort for the employee, because again, if I'm serving our customers and something's hard for me to do, it translates to being hard for the customer too. And it makes me frustrated because it's not easy. And it's one of those opportunities that, the leader, the direct manager or supervisor of any employee is the most critical aspect of longevity of that employee, the satisfaction, or even beyond that, the loyalty of that employee is all one-on-one to that relationship between the direct manager and themselves. And yes.
And before you say, because absolutely. And so I need for companies to understand when you've got high turnover or you've got a bunch of things going on within a company, it starts with the leader. And when you talk about the culture, and there may be some people out here that don't understand what we mean by organizational culture, and it's the shared values and assumptions and all of those things that tie in, but it all begins with that leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, employee culture or employer culture, if you will. I mean, there are attributes of employee culture that you can use. There are things like mission statements and value statements and things of that nature. But bad companies, that's all they do. The reality is, how do you put it into action? So, for instance, I'll use an example. If you want to be a challenger type of personality and try to do different than the status quo, if that's your vision or part of your, then you've got to do that in action. If you're constantly running away from doing something different or a new way, that doesn't reinforce it. So the culture is a combination of those things that are to a certain extent decided on paper by leadership, because that's the direction they want to go. That's kind of a little bit of the map. But then it's really about, is everybody moving where that map is pointing? And do they think about these things? One of the best companies that you mentioned a little bit in the opener, but when I was at T-Mobile had an incredible culture. Still do, as far as I know. I haven't been there for quite a while, but it was one of those things that we actually wanted to learn and memorize the values, because we were going to talk about them in our one-on-one coachings and things of that nature. And so you ended up with this organizational structure that really pointed to things. And then you were talking to your direct supervisor about those, things. How did you, improve the experience today for the customers? How did you overcome obstacles? Whatever those things might be in your organization, it is putting where the rubber hits the road, as the saying is. It's really making sure that it's not just on paper, it's part of the action and activity. I like to say that we mirror in business what we measure. So
Love
if
it.
you're
Say that
measuring,
again.
yeah,
Say it again.
absolutely. In business, we mirror what we measure. And what I mean by that is, if you put metrics around something, that's the behavior you're going to mirror. That's the activity that you're reinforcing. So as we think about that, if I've got values over here, but I've got then, what I'm measuring over here, and they don't connect, that's one of the biggest challenges you can have as an organization that'll break the culture, is because you're not putting the, reality around your experience. A great example I use also with companies is, it's all about the customer experience. But when you look at what they're measuring, they're basically measuring, is this agent doing a good job on this call? Or, something like that. It's a disconnect from saying, well, that's not does that experience with one agent impact the experience? Yes. But is it the customer experience? No. You've got to bring the website team and the mobile app team and all this other technology that we as consumers are bouncing between. You've got to make that all part of what the experience is. And, just focusing on one piece isn't enough anymore.
And the reason that T-Mobile is as effective and as great as it is because every one of those employees can tell you what their vision, their mission there is, because they're living it. They're and leadership is enabling them to live it. It's nothing like being in an environment where there's that kind of congruency, where there's that kind of synergy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that doesn't exist everywhere.
Not
And
everywhere. Nope.
that's why they need you.
Job security, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I think a lot of companies are starting to get it. There's a statistic that I use a lot, because Salesforce came up with this in their research. 80% of customers say the experience they have with your company is as important as the products or services you sell.
Oh, without doubt.
And, you know, and
Say
that,
that again. Say that
yeah,
again.
absolutely. 80% of customers say the experience they have with your company is as important as the products or services you sell. Because again, think about it. Gone are the days when a really good product can make up for really bad, experiences. And we are all we're actually getting more fed up with bad experiences. And it's kind of
Yes.
this point of inflection, if you will, within our business, that as we think about our engagement with our customers, we're not just selling a widget, we're selling what that widget does for the customer and what their experience is with it. And that's different than a lot of prior years and things of that nature, because we're getting, and if you think about it, we did a, a, a panel with some Gen Z, some seniors in high school. For them, it's all the experience. They don't buy a shoe because they like the shoe. They buy the shoe for an experience it creates for them with their friends and the brand and so forth. It as we, this new generation, these little nice little cell phones, they're making a lot of things easy, and companies, this may be another one I repeat. Companies, are seeing that a person's last best experience is their new minimum expectation for everyone they work with. So if they have a really good experience with one company, even if that company has nothing to do with your products or services, they're looking at that great experience saying, well, why can't this business be like that?
Say that again, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to type it in the chat as you're talking about it, because this is
Yeah.
important stuff. So, a person's last best experience.
Becomes their next minimum expectation.
And oh my God,
So
this
the
is
bar, whoop, whoop, it's constantly being raised. And think about yourself as a consumer, thinking about what, your experiences. You're saying the same things when you're thinking, well, what, and I've worked in financial services and, banking, et cetera. And, a lot of financial services are very old, established, sometimes stuffy companies. And this push to digital transformation, especially during COVID, it started to open up a lot of people's eyes to say, hey, we have to have apps. We have to be able to do things easily. We have to be predictive and proactive. And, we've got to get in front of issues before they happen, instead of waiting until the customer's having a pound yelling for representative because something's already broken. And it's really generated this groundswell across all businesses and industries, this understanding of what we can do. So I actually spoke back in February at a healthcare conference. And I remember someone saying right after my panel, they kind of quoted me on it. And they said, these folks from finance were talking about, the effort score of a customer. And he said, I would be scared to know what the patient's effort score is. But that is
thank
one,
you.
yeah, right. But that's starting to generate the right kind of dialogue about difficulty. And
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And so this is not, I mean, when we're talking about companies, we're talking about
Anywhere.
across the board, hospitals, nonprofits, 500, Fortune 500s, mom and pops, all of those encompass what Sean is talking about today. If you want to increase your profits, then you need to learn how to treat your people and your patients and your customers and your employees. All of that ties in. All right, don't get me started. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sounds like you're already there. Keep going. Keep going. No, and it's you mentioned profits. So let me pull on that thread a little bit. So my book, that just recently came out, 4 Rocks, but I based some of my context out of a previous set of research done by some group. It was called CEB, and they wrote a book called The Effortless Experience. And Matt Dixon, Rick Toma, and Rick DeLisi, these are guys that I actually have met and kind of have talked to and know, and they're kind of off doing other things. But what they found, the research around that said, if something is hard to do, back then, this is about 2013 when this book was published, something is hard to do, the customer is 4 times more likely to show disloyal behavior, leave the company, churn out, attrit, or have negative revenue, negative assets, whatever you want to look at. So high effort, 4 times more likely to be disloyal. It's now, in my research, 5 times more likely. It's going up, because as we look at it, something's hard today, I'm 5 times more likely to either leave, have negative assets, start leaving, quiet quitting. If you think about agent effort score or employee effort score, you could translate the same thing to the employees around effort. If things are hard, that is one of the things that now is triggering, because again, we're tired of hard things. We want it to be as easy as possible. I'll tell a little story. So my youngest son will love me for this, but I'll give him kudos. So the cover of my book was actually done by my youngest son. He's doing a graphic design in college. So anyway, I'll go with the positive before I give him a hard time. So my son was, he's a senior in high school, and he was applying for college and picked a few colleges he kind of knew he wanted to go to that had the kind of programs he was looking for. He did all of his applications on his cell phone for college. And then he questioned, well, why it says pending? And it's like, yeah, it's been pending for 2 months. They haven't accepted, there's something wrong. But he's like, if I can't do it on the phone, what's the point? So again, going to that younger generation, that focus of effort and ease, we all have it, but the younger the generations are, and so if your business or is focused especially on the younger generations, then you got to be ready. They are not going to put up with it. They're not going to, they'll bail out, and unless they really, really, really need it, and it's very important, they won't put themselves through hoops to get things done. They'll bail and go to someone else who's a competitor for sure.
Absolutely. And I think about that quote, if things are hard to do, you lose your employees and your customers. And that reminds me of a quote by James Michener that kind of ties in with this, because if you love what you do, then the effort should not be that hard. If you love what you do within that company, it's going to spill over into your customer service. So oftentimes we have people on jobs, and they're on those jobs out of necessity. I gotta work. I need to work. But if it's hard, if you don't like it, then you're not going to perform at your utmost ability. And
Yep.
James Michener had a quote, and his quote is, "The master in the art of living draws no distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation, his love or his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever it is he's doing, and leaves it to others to determine whether he's working or playing. To himself, he's always doing both." And when
Yeah.
you can get companies to make sure their employees feel that way, can you imagine? Can you imagine? And I know you're on that track now, because you're doing what you love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and it's not about ping pong tables and potlucks. I mean, there's a lot of, what's the term that they used? Lipsticks on the pig, or lipstick on a pig. It's,
Right.
that's not, I mean, yeah, that can make things a little more fun, but that's not what most of us are looking for. We want fulfillment, right? And that kind of talks about what you're looking for. I want to do what I love. I want the fulfillment in what I do. And even if I would rather be doing something else, if I feel that fulfillment, then I give more. And that goes
Yes.
again to the culture and the connection and the community that you have from that perspective, and then gets passed on to the customers through that as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges right now. And you kind of mentioned it, and I talked about it in the intro, that artificial intelligence,
Yes.
AI, the big
Yes.
scary AI.
Yes. Talk
And
about it.
there's a lot of conversation on both sides of the coin saying AI is going to come in and replace jobs. And then on the other, and then on the other side, it's, AI is bad. There's a lot of negatives around that. Let me try to tell it in a way, in a story. So last summer, this is last summer, I was at a conference, I was on a panel, and they asked one of those, the very last question. They said, all right, look into your crystal ball. What do you think the call center, it was more of a call center conference, what do you think the call center experience is going to be 5 years from now? This is before ChatGPT, by the way. And so last summer my answer was, well, in 5 years, I, as an employee who have a passion for the customer, I have empathy like crazy, and I want to communicate effectively, and I want to make an impact with people. Maybe today that person struggles because of how hard a customer service job is. Most customer service agents are balancing like 20 different systems back and forth to get work done. If many of you as consumers have never even seen, or even think about what that is, it's bad. It's really hard. So think about 5 years from now. I can have a conversation with Vera, and I could be talking to you and talking about what's going on and how it can help you, and where can we, support you as a customer. And all the meanwhile, the tools are doing all the work. It's listening to the conversation. If I say I want to buy this or I want to sell that, it's plugging the order into the system. I, as an employee, am making sure that it's capturing everything right. It's bringing up things like articles or answers to questions as they're being discussed. But I'm focused on having a conversation primarily. The work is getting done automated. And I said, that's 5 years from now, last summer. You asked me that right now?
It's here.
Maybe 2 years. It's already here.
When
I was at a conference earlier this month, and it's like I went into the room with all the different vendors and the booths, and it's like, you use AI for this purpose, you use it for this purpose, and for this purpose, and for this purpose. And I think what companies need to really understand is, yes, you could, if you wanted to do it the wrong way, you could just basically use technology to let people go. The wrong way to do it. Or use it to enhance that employee experience, to enhance the customer experience, to actually create more fulfillment. Again, if that job is easier and I'm having that, great conversation with people, I'm not going to want to leave. And the work is not hard. And now I'm going to be even more valuable to you as a company because I'm able to have that conversation and build a relationship that uplifts that relationship between customer and business. That's the way that we should be thinking about these opportunities. The other point to that is, you keep your employees longer too, because the work is, again, more fulfilling, easier to do, more automation. And so I think the more we throw technologies at consumers, chat bots or all sorts of crazy things that are coming out right now, the more we throw technology at consumers, the more they're going to want people. And I use an example. At the beginning of COVID, there were some companies that used it, the reason to lay off a bunch of people. Short-sighted. And now they're struggling to hire those people back, or have been ever since COVID, because they didn't realize what would happen. The same thing can happen with this AI movement. If you use it to let people go, you're now going to be behind all your peers and all the other companies that are embracing it to use it to create better experiences for employees and customers in that order.
And I can see how AI could particularly help salespeople because, like you said, as a salesperson, basically what you want to do is engage and talk with your customer. That's what you want to do. But you've got all the documentation, the paperwork, and all these other things. I've worked in sales before, so I know, all these other things that go along with that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I was told, Vera, people love you, but this is not working right here. because all I wanted to do was talk. Just let's talk, okay? But anyway, all the reporting and all that other stuff. And when you said you can be talking to your customer and all of a sudden the reports are done, the solution to the problem of the conversation is done, and by the time you're finished with the conversation, you're ready to hand them the documentation that is needed because AI has already done it for you. But
Yep.
one of the concerns is for creatives, a lot of concern that AI will take over what creatives do, like writing, even the artwork, even the music. And I'm a poet, as you know, and I was talking to someone, and I was talking and with my anti-bullying thing. They was like, "Well, Vera, first they asked me if I sing, and I'm not really a singer, But anyway, it was like, why don't you create a song for bullying?" And I said, "Well, let me write a poem about that." And as we're talking, he goes into Chat GPT, and before the end of our conversation, it's like, "Here's the poem." I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, so that's one of the concerns with AI. And so I'd like for you to speak on that, even though we've just mentioned the benefits of AI. If you could kind of touch on some of the apprehensions that people have about it and help um, diffuse or dissipate some of those things that people are feeling.
Yeah. And I think there may be apprehensions that are very well warranted. Just like any technology, bad actors, people who don't have, things on the up and up. I mean, just like computer programs, right? The second we got the value of computers, it was almost like day two, we had hackers, right? So, you end up with that, and bad actors will happen no matter what we do. But one of the ideas with a lot of people talking in this space is that you can actually use AI to combat bad actor AI as well, for creatives. And I actually had this conversation again. I told, my son is studying graphic design in college. And I said, you do realize that I could go and just put a couple of prompts and I get, some images and stuff like that. And while it can speed up the process for getting to a creative item, I still feel like it's the human that will put that'll blow the life into it, right? You can get a visual, but it needs to be the human that really makes sure it's guiding that tool. So again, I think of it more as, the bad actor part, it will be getting good enough that, they talk about deep fakes and things like that. There's going to be some stuff like that. And I do think it goes back to what I said earlier. I think face-to-face will end up being even more important.
Yes.
And direct communication will be more important, because sometimes you won't know if what you're seeing or reading or, hearing is actually real. And
Yes.
that's the dark side of it. And, we're hoping that as we go forward, we're going to combat that with all of the right uses of the tools that can then find those issues. And but there's a lot of unknown. I don't nearly say I know everything, or even that much about that where we're going, because it's all unwritten. But we will have to be very conscious of how it's used.
Absolutely. And you're saying that one-on-one, that personal touch is going to be more important because of that. But our young people are so consumed with technology that they can be sitting right next to a person, and rather than talk to them, they're chatting and they're texting them. And so that contact, that eye to eye communications, it's got to be retaught
Mm-hmm.
because
It
of
will.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and it's one of those that, um, you know, when things like this happen in the world around us, advancements like this in technology, launch of the original computers, yes, it took time, but all of a sudden it became, a trigger point that, this is another one of those trigger points. The foundation of especially what you described earlier, person to person contact, real communication, real partnership, that will be a need for everyone to come back to. And I do think some of the younger generation, they're going to actually, I know my son's in the stages of 2 in college and 1 right out of college. They're seeing it now. They're seeing how, when I was younger and when I was doing things and when I was only looking at, social media and everything like that, we're even having conversation with them. They're like, yeah, I'm now realizing most of that was fake. That it wasn't their real life. It was like the best one moment out of, and so there's already this maturity when that I hope continues, that as you mature as a person and grow up, you start to see, a lot of that for what it is. And it will be up to, and I know you're very passionate about this, parents working with kids and helping them understand, those differences and those opportunities. And that's an area that I can only barely speak to just from my own experience with my boys. But, one of the facts that one of my sons, my oldest, came back at one point and said, remember, you used to always tell us these things. And I said, you were crazy. You were right most of the time. It's like, oh, thank God I got it. I got that, and it's just, we got to keep doing it. So.
Exactly. And communications is so important. And like you said, it starts with the family, with the parents, having those one-on-one, those eye-to-eye conversations with their kids so that they know that when they get out into society, that's how we communicate. It's not all about the texting. It's about that communications. And, I can't believe we've gone through all this conversation and I have not played one commercial. So I'm going to play a couple of those and then we'll come right back.
Okay.
Mama Knows creates high quality products that are available to be used on multiple textures of hair. Her goal is to bridge the gap to stop people from having to use multiple products because of families with multiple hair types. Her products are currently being used on men, women, children of all ethnicities. Mama Knows products are available at www.mamaknowsproducts.com. That's www.mamaknowsproducts.com. You can also find her on Instagram at Mama Knows Products because, Mama knows what you need.
Knows what you need. And I'm telling you, these products are awesome. They smell great. They really work with your hair, all kinds of hair products, shampoos, conditioners, hair serums, moisturizers. And these products are for all ethnicities. And they're for men, women, and children. So go to mamaknowsproducts.com and check her out. Why? Because Mama knows what you need.
As a business pro, you know the way to make real money is to have a big, qualified audience listen carefully to your every word. Step up and speak at the Global Awaken Trinity Summit, and that's exactly what you'll have. It's a 4-day event aimed exclusively at those who want to make their business, any business, take off, grow, and thrive. The best will be teaching and inspiring, and you should be one of them. From marketing tool secrets to the best ways to build relationships and make connections. Founder Kessa Gooden is putting on this once-in-a-lifetime event, the Global Awaken Trinity Summit VIP Gala and Yacht Mastermind. Registration starts at 9 sharp each day, February 29th through March 3rd, 2024 in Miami, Florida. To speak or for tickets, call 404-992-3971. Spaces are filling up, so call now. 404-992-3971. Or visit us online at globalawakenedevents.com, and we will see you there. For real, take your business, any business, to the next level by joining us at the Global Awaken Trinity Summit. 4 days of opportunities and inside info you don't want to miss, as over 35 celebrity speakers will be live in person to teach you exactly how to make your business take off, grow, and thrive. From marketing tool secrets to the best ways to build relationships, partnerships, and make true connections. Founder Kessa Gooden is putting on this once-in-a-lifetime event, the Global Awaken Trinity Summit VIP Gala and Yacht Mastermind, February 29th through March 3rd, 2024 in Miami, Florida. Registration starts at 9 sharp each day. Bring your business partner, your team, your friends, anyone and everyone who wants real success. For tickets, call 404-992-3971. Tickets will not last, so call now. 404-992-3971. Or visit us online at globalawakenedevents.com, and we will see you there.
Annual event that includes celebrity speakers, professional speakers from all walks of life that are here to pour into you. If you are a speaker and you want to know more about how you might be a speaker at this conference, then please contact Kessie at 404-992-3971 or go to globalawakeningevents.com. I'd rather you call her and tell her you heard it on the Vera Thomas Show, okay? Because this is going to be an awesome, awesome event. I'm hoping to get there myself. It is going to be awesome. And they have a yacht mastermind. You're going to be on a yacht? Come on now. This is an awesome experience that I do want you to consider. And we've got comments here coming from, Kevin Steele. Kevin says, my kids are coming back with the same thing about how I was right about things. I love hearing it, but even better, I can tell myself, yes, they were listening. Absolutely, absolutely, absolute. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for chiming in, Kevin. All right, now back to the business at hand. I am so glad you're here, Sean, and we've got we've covered a lot of material. Now, one of the things that is mentioned on the cover of your book, I want to make sure that we touch on the things that are showcased in your book. We're not gonna read the book, and we're not gonna tell them everything that's in it. However, we want to give them some nuggets that's going to make them want to get the book. Now, you talk about reduce effort. We talked about that. Drive loyalty. Transform the customer journey. That's what we've been talking about here today. Transforming the customer journey. Not just the external customer, but the internal customer as well. And so, what did we not cover that we need to cover before this show ends?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so let me just kind of break down the book for you. So I have 3 main sections of the book. The first section talks about where do rocks come from in business? Where are the triggers for that in business? And sometimes it's based on growth or change, or maybe it's really, external events, that occur, or even just, events like outages. If you're in a technology business, an outage can be one of the worst things. So I talk a lot about where do rocks in business come from? And ultimately, what do you do as a business to try to avoid them in the first place? Because you don't want them to happen. And so section 1 is really about kind of a look at about the sources of rocks, how they come to be, how to understand where they're coming from, why they're happening, so you can get in front of that as you go. Section 2 is all about my process for how do you build kind of the rock strategy that I cover in this that really helps a company from people, process, and platforms. How do you build the program to really understand and find those big rocks? It's also what I spend a lot of time in my workshops focusing on is, how do you live this? How do you take these proven techniques and use them in your business? A lot of times with what you already have in your business, it doesn't always take a lot of investments. It's just knowing and thinking differently about how to leverage it. And then the back end, the third section, which is one of probably the most important, is what do you do when you find the rocks? Because again, if you can't avoid them, even though you've tried, and you find them, it's a waste of time if you don't do something about it. And so it really talks about ways to think about them, prioritize the work, look at what needs to be done in your business. And I'll give a sneak peek. I call it breaking. Really, it's what do you do to break rocks? And it comes out to in an anagram is you can blast them, you can blow them up, you can remove them, you can let them erode, you can accept them. Maybe there's something that you can't do anything about right away, so you just kind of have to accept it, keep it on a list, or you keep it. Sometimes rocks or challenges for customers are required because of privacy issues or things like that. So you can't get rid of those. You actually want to keep them. And there's a lot of information and different ways to think about, how to handle those after you've built the program. But it's really focused on, a guide, if you will, for organizations to, really understand this experience, this journey transformation, so that you're making things easier versus harder. Because we talked about the really bad ones. I want to, before we, get too close to wrapping up, I want to share another story. So I had a company I was working with. I didn't even know I had this looming deadline. 45 days out, I had this thing that was going to happen. It's like, and they sent me a proactive email. They said, "Hey, Mr. Albertson, this is going to happen. Let's make sure you don't have to do it right now, but let's take care of it before too long so that there's no interruption in service or no problems from it." It's like, wow, that's awesome. You let me know proactively. Didn't leave it up to me to figure it out. Now, I read the email and it was great. It had a lot of good information, but I still had some questions. It said, click here for more information. I went to the website, but not just to the website homepage. I went to that section that had the FAQs about the situation and what was going on. Now, I read it. Maybe I'm not as smart as I like to think I am, but I was reading it thinking, I might have to go in person. I really don't want to go in person. So I decided to call. So I picked up the phone and I dialed the number. "Hello, Mr. Albertson. I see that this is going on your account. Is this why you're calling today?" They know me. They know what's going on. "Yes." "Well, let's get you to that department right away." So no panging on numbers and no yelling representative. They took me right to that department. A little bit of bad music and your call is so important to us. But agent answered and said, "Oh, Mr. Albertson, I see you're verified in the system. What can I answer for you?" After a little bit of conversation, they said, "Yeah, unfortunately, you are going to have to come in person. I just sent you a link to our calendar. Put it, schedule it." I scheduled it. I got a link back, put on my calendar. I'm good. I got reminders a week out, 3 days out, and a day before. And all those emails, reminders had a button to reschedule if I needed to. I was good with the schedule as it was. So the morning of my appointment, I get an email and a text message that says, "When you get on site today, when you get to the office, click this link." I walk in the door, I click the link. "Your number 810. Oh, we're only on 808. That's awesome. I barely sat down and it said, "Go to desk 6. I go to desk 6. The person there says, "Hello, Mr. Albertson. I've got your information pulled up. We're ready to go. Let's knock this out and get you out of here." A seamless experience.
Wow.
But not just seamless in one fashion. It was seamless between technology and then people, and then technology and then people. A perfect experience. And some of my worst experiences, like the yelling and everything else, have been with companies that are known to have great customer service. But I have those kind of experiences.
Right.
This story I just told you.
Yes.
This seamless experience.
Yes.
My local DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, long time known as horrible experiences.
Horrible.
The butt of all jokes when it comes to customer service.
Yes.
And yet they figured out how to get it right. They looked at the journey and they removed all of the rocks.
Wow.
But here's what's most important. If the DMV can do it, you all can do it. It's possible. And it just takes that focus and that passion and looking for those opportunities to do it as a collaborative environment within your organization. You use the power of your people and let it blend with technology, and you can win in the experience race.
Well, let me ask you now, have they standardized the DMV across the country?
Nope. They have not. I know that for a fact. No, some are still on the, bad, but yeah, if the DMV can do it, yeah, we absolutely sure can. to find those opportunities. And the technology is there, and the investment is possible. And yeah, there's still work to be done at the rest of the DMVs, but I know ours was exceptional.
Wow. What is IVR? Do you know?
IVR is that phone tree. So when you call and you say, it either says, please tell us what you want, or press a button. That's an IVR. It's an interactive voice response system is what it's called.
I'm glad I asked. Okay. I've experienced it, but I didn't know it was called IVR. Okay.
Yep,
so
exactly.
Learn something new. Now I want to also put in the chat what break rocks stand for. You said you can blast them.
Blast, remove, erode, accept, or keep. And so think about blowing up a process or blowing up certain technology to remove it. Blasting is just rip and, pull it out. But the problem is you got to watch out for collateral damage when you do that. Remove is what we all want to do. It's the very methodical way to make a big change and remove. Erode means you can't remove it because maybe you don't have enough funding, but do little changes, little as you go, and wear that rock down. Accept it again is, I can't do anything about it. It's going to sit on my list. I'm not going to ignore it forever. I will always revisit it. And then keep is it's a rock. It's a challenge, but embrace it and actually, build around it. Things like privacy or HIPAA in medical, or those type. There are things that have to be done, but you got to embrace them and build into them and actually invest so that they're not as negatively impactful like other rocks are.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm telling you, I learned a lot here today. And what I want to do, we only have a few minutes, and I'm going to give you the floor and let you make final statements and just kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, my hope really I've been doing customer service for businesses for 20 years, customer experience, and going out on my own, it's a little bit of a leap of faith myself, writing the book and really, going out on my own as a professional speaker and a coach and a consultant. But it's because of the passion I have that, we in business and in life, so much of what we do, is that balance of personal and professional. And we do a lot with our personal lives, and that is the heart of what we do. But we, investing as well in that business side, that professional side, because again, we're also consumers, and putting ourselves in our own customer shoes that talk about things that we can do better to really ultimately help us all, as consumers and people in working with each other and with businesses, break down those silos, work together across your organization and find ways to really make that kind of impact. It's not just about profitability, but it's also about when the experience is better, the life conditions are better, for most people. And it really is something that I'm passionate about, and looking forward to continuing to share my message. And, my email and phone number has been plastered all over this thing. So happy to talk to you. My website is cx4rocks.com, just like the tail end of my email address. So see me there. I got videos on there, other information about my program, and would love to connect.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I almost forgot. I need to let you know about a workshop that I've got going on this weekend. I can't believe I didn't say anything, but I want you to seriously consider, if you or your children or people that you know, or even grandparents, if any of you have experienced bullying in your family, in your life, at home, at work, in school, then I want to encourage you to please attend my workshop that's coming up this weekend from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And I'm excited about it because it is for parents and their children ages 8 to 13. We're going to be looking at bullying across the board because parents have experienced bullying themselves, either in relationships on their jobs, in society. So we're going to talk about that. Kids are bullied in school, on the playground, in communities. We're going to talk about that. We're going to look at resolution, and we're going to also give you an opportunity to actually practice how to communicate and respond when you are in those situations. So you can go to bit.ly anti-bully use my power, or you can capture the QR code that's up here now. So thank you. And Sean, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And Sean and I are both a part of Speakers Speak, which is a great way for professional speakers to come together and be critiqued and also learn how to MC and all kinds of other things. And we meet weekly, and you can find them on Facebook, speakerspeak.com, or Speakers Speak Group on Facebook. Well, Sean, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure having you on my show. And as we leave, I would like for you to just hold on a minute before you just take off. Okay?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Okay, audience, thank you very much. And this is evergreen, so it's going to be airing constantly on all platforms and on all podcast platforms as well. So with that, all of you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see some of you on Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 4, for my Using My Power workshop. All right. Thank you very much. God bless. Bye-bye.
The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. Let's talk about it. 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 On the Vera Thomas Show. Let's talk